by accident. So welcome to our little virtual farm tour. So I'm Amy.
And I'm Tobias.
What's your name?
I'm Horatio.
Horatio.
And my name's Violet from West Walla Farm.
Well, thank you for joining us for our virtual farm tour.
I'm that. Amy, that.
Winter 2020,
Yeah.
we had intended to start running small tours and visits to our farm. But unfortunately, like everything else in 2020, none of that is happening anytime soon, or for the foreseeable future. So Amy suggested that we should have a virtual farm tour. And one she originally suggested, I'd envisioned basically me walking around the paddock with a selfie stick pointing at things. And like most things, Amy then pointed out all the problems with my idea, like, lots of walking or, boring watching me drive
no phone signal.
And or losing phone or intermittent phone signal. So what we've done, I'm going to show you today is a pre-prepared video of to kind of give you the essence of what we do on a day-to-day and into our business and our farm. And then after that, we'll do a live question and answer session.
Yeah, so just a few technical things before we start the pre-record. You'll notice that there's a Q&A box down the bottom of your screen. If you want to ask a question that we'll answer live at the end, just type it in there at any time, and we'll go through those after the pre-record video. And as many of you already started doing, we can chat in the chat box at any time. And also let us know if there's any technical issues. We're doing our best, but this is the first time we've done a Zoom webinar. We've all been using Zoom for meetings and things like that, but actually running a webinar is a little bit different. So we'll do our best to get it right. So without too much more, I think we'll just show you the pre-recorded video. It's us filming ourselves, it's us filming each other, all in a rush before we had about 60 mils of rain this week. So we sent the videos off to Lydia, our farmhand. She's a whiz on YouTube, and she's put together this video for us. So here we go.
Mommy, but I want to say something.
You say something at the end, Violet.
These are our livestock guardian dogs. They're Maremmas, a breed from Italy that's been used for thousands of years to guard livestock, mostly sheep. We use them to guard our chickens, obviously. This is Mac. He's a beautiful tall boy. And Tuscan decided that he needed pats off Tobias while he was filming. Tuscan! 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 Come here. Hey, Mac. Hey, Tuscan. Hello. And the black dog is Zelda, our pet. She's a German short-haired pointer cross border collie, and she's a little bit crazy.
And every single time we try to come through the gate, we have to go through this very dramatic, getting pats, trying to get more pats, and then trying to move, getting more pats. So Mac, for instance, if I try to move away sometimes, he will then follow me, insisting on more pats. And it's great for being filmed, but when you're trying to carry a tray of eggs, it can sometimes get a little bit inconvenient, and they really don't ever take no for an answer. Ever. Hello, we're over at the fence line now. Here at West Walla Farm, we always like to give our chickens uninterrupted access to the outdoors and be as free range as possible. So the only thing holding them in is our perimeter fence over here. And the main purpose of that is not even to keep the foxes out, because the dogs be with the foxes. It's simply to stop our chickens wandering into the neighbours' paddocks or onto the road, which can be a little bit hazardous. So then, other than our perimeter fence that runs around our entire property, there is nothing constricting our chickens' movements. As you know, we don't lock them up at night, and they've got 24-hour access to the outdoors. We're over here at the chicken feeders. It's always very important to ensure there's enough feeding space along here for all of the chickens you've got. We've currently got 4 of them. 3 smaller ones that are Chicken Caravan brand, and 1 larger pattern. Even though, as you've seen, the chickens have unlimited access to grass and foraging and bugs that they can scratch for, but the majority of their diet still comes from a feed mix. The one that we use comes out from Leeton, which is out near Griffith, far deeper in the Riverina. And this feed basically makes up for everything they might not get out of the grass or and from bugs. They do like it a lot, as I will now demonstrate. Come on, girls. Prove me right. Most of the chickens will eat first thing when they get up before they go and lay their eggs. And there's always a few stragglers that might be around the feeder in the evening, but by now, at sunset, most have already eaten dinner.
So it's a peak hour in the chicken caravans this morning. There's chickens in the nesting boxes laying their eggs, and there's a bit of a queue with the last stragglers waiting to have spaces. We take a peek. This nesting box has got 1, 2, 3, 4 chickens in it, all laying their eggs right now, all waiting their turn. So this one here. It's being disturbed. These privacy flaps make them feel really comfortable and confident that they can safely pause in their day and lay their eggs.
As you can see around me, the chickens have been in this area for a little bit too long, so it's time to move them onto some fresh new grass and a nice area so they can work for that part of the paddock as well. As you can see, you don't have to move very far, and as soon as I've moved it, the chickens have all figured out where the caravan's gone and moved along to their new home location for the next few days.
So after we move the chicken caravans, we need to level the caravan both this way, front to back, and the nesting boxes side to side to stop the eggs from cracking when they roll into the conveyor belt. So all we have to do is loosen off this bolt here. Be a bit tedious, and then swing it until it's level with the using the spirit level just there. Okay, and then tighten it back up again, and that's how we don't have any cracked eggs on our conveyor belt. So the chickens are loving their shell grit. We actually let them run out before we moved the caravans. Just for a day or so, but they're really enjoying having the shell grit back. So the peak of the day is over. Most of them have had their breakfast, most of them have laid their eggs, and now they're just hanging around, scratching about in the forage, in the grass and bugs, having a rest under the caravan. Some are over in the dust bathing holes, just being chickens. The key to our sort of farming is let the chickens express their true chickenness all the time. They're just happy girls. So here's the chickens in a new dust bath that they have made just today. So they were moved to this location last night, and already they've scratched all the grass away and made themselves a lovely area to dust bathe in. Makes for great ankle breaking holes in the paddock, but we're working to fill those holes with compost at the moment, so there'll be actually lovely little fertile spots.
Hello, it's Tobias. I'm out doing one of the jobs that has to be done here at West Walla Farm every single day. Other jobs, like putting feed out for chickens, can be left in the feeders, so they've got a few days over feed. But something we do every day is collecting the eggs, even on Christmas Day, even on your birthday. So I'm out here at our chicken caravan, and as you would have seen earlier, this is where the nesting box is where they lay.
and this is the conveyor belt where the eggs come out. Which is very handy, and you roll it up, and there are all our beautiful freshly laid eggs. We put on the bottom one down, the bottom tray down here, all of the normal sized eggs. And if there's any eggs that are oversized, that one, like that one, I'll put that one up the top right here. Now we normally stack them about 6 high, because more than that it becomes very hard to carry. So I'm back collecting eggs again, and some good news. We finally noticed this slightly odd-looking little egg, and this will be one of the pullet eggs from one of our new flock of chickens. That's a good sign to mean they finally started laying. So hopefully in the next few days, in the next week or so, we'll get even more and more and more of those. So once we've collected the eggs, we bring them into this room, which is our processing, grading, and packaging room. And once they come through the door, they come up onto this wall, which are where we store our unprocessed eggs. Then, once we take the eggs, we process them through the egg grater here, which we're about to demonstrate. Once they've been processed and they're sorted and they've been candled and they've been checked for sizes, they get stored over here on these shelves. Then we then pack them over here on this table. And then finally, once they're packaged and they're ready to either go out to stockists or to customers, well, they're stored on these shelves over here. So let's show you how grading works. So the first thing to do is you've got to grab a stack of eggs. So these ones over here are from a few days ago, so I'll start off with these ones. So I bring them over to the grater, put them down, load up the grater, so over here, I'm checking for cracks, and as the eggs go across the crack, there's one there, we're cracking it. The candle light underneath shines through the eggs, and you can see where the cracks are and then sort them out. Then the eggs move down here, where they're weighed, and then categorized and graded into their various weights, moving from the heaviest to the lightest.
Handled the eggs to check for cracks, and the machine has weighed them and sorted them into different sizes. We pop them up in trays just in their sizes. So we have 600s, 700s, 800s, 900s coming down here, as well as the whoppers. We may weigh them manually on the scales to double check whether they're a 900 or a whopper. Whoppers we stack up over here. Now this machine is a vintage Ben Nevis egg grater. Probably a little bit too passionate about this piece of machinery. Because it makes our life so much easier. It's a lovely piece of kit. It's been doing this job for a very long time, probably at least 50, maybe 60 or 70 years. It was built in Liverpool in the UK, and it still does a wonderful job with the mechanical weights. So yeah, I'm just gonna pack some eggs. We stamp each egg individually, one at a time. And yeah, that's how we grade and pack the eggs. Now we date our eggs best before 42 days after they're laid by our chickens. Unlike the big producers who organise their best before dates from the date they're packaged at the packaging centres, weeks after they've left the farm, ours get dated 6 days from the date the chicken lays the egg, and we always get them to you within a week of them being laid. Okay.
Hello, we're back.
So short and sweet. We actually reduced it down a lot. I think we had 2 hours of filming. So hopefully it gave you a little bit of an overview of what we do here. And yeah, so I suppose let's get started on the questions.
We will. Amy made me take out all my very thespian bits of this footage, so that was all removed. So let's move into the first question. So the first question we've got is from Jan Jeffries. Hi, Jan. And the question is, what is the best chook to have in Queensland as a layer and for children to pet? If you want to get a chicken for a backyard, which will both lay eggs and be very docile for children, anything from the Browns family, because of the way they've been bred to be docile for farming uses, will first of all give you lots of eggs, and will be far more friendly to pat because they're quite docile. Although they're more on the more boring side for a backyard, you sometimes find with more of the show breeds, you'll get a lot less eggs, and they can have be a little bit more temperamental and a bit more kind of attitude.
But they might lay more beautiful eggs. So some of the heritage breeds will lay blue and green eggs. Maybe you'd be more interested in having a pretty coloured egg. But if you want a prolific layer that is also a friendly bird, any of the hybrid browns, so an Isa brown, a Highline brown, a Lomond brown, or a Bond brown. Now, Bonds are actually bred in Australia in Queensland, so they're probably quite easy to get up there.
But we don't recommend a rooster for your backyard.
No.
Particularly little kids.
No, Violet got attacked by our rooster when she was about 3, so that was a little bit scary. Okay, next question.
From Roz, who's put quite a few questions. We'll try to go through all the questions in the order we've received them. So if you put in multiple questions, I'll probably come back to your question as we've gone through them. So the next one is from Roz. Do they sometimes lay their eggs in other places like under trees? Yes. It is an ongoing battle to make sure they lay in the right places. We spend an awful lot of time, and particularly in winter, a lot of very, very cold early mornings of getting up and training the chickens to lay in the nesting boxes. And you can never train every single chicken. So every once in a while, we'll find a tree of a hollow filled up with eggs, or a hole in the ground filled up with eggs. Or this morning, the kids, Horatio a while ago dropped a key through our floorboards in the middle of summer when we got brown snakes, and I said, well, I might not go get that until it cools down. Amy told me this morning, today was the day that I'm going to take the kids into the tunnels underneath the house.
I wanted access. I wanted to get into that cupboard. There was things in that cupboard I needed.
I discovered several, big piles of contraband eggs, being stored down there, which I have to go back in the next few days and retrieve. And put in the bin, but yes, it is an ongoing battle.
So any eggs that aren't laid in the chicken caravans, we don't sell. Any eggs that we find that aren't on the conveyor belt in the caravans, they either get fed to our dogs, just thrown, because we don't know if they're rotten or not. We want them as far away from us as possible. Or if we know that they're fresh, but they weren't laid where they're supposed to be, we might use them in the house. But unfortunately, we don't want to put the risk out there to sell an egg that wasn't fresh. So any egg that's not laid on the conveyor belt is discarded.
I think the next question was from David Johnson. Hi, David. And it was, what do you use for shell grit?
Yeah, we just use a Lauk Mills seashell grit. It's a fairly standard product. We buy it in 20 kilo bags from our local elders. It's probably one of the most readily available shell grits. There's other options out there, but for us it was the easiest to buy, and it meets the needs of our chickens.
So I think we then come back to Roz for the next question, and it was what kind of ink is it edible? We just use standard butcher's ink, so it's the exact same type of ink that they would stamp onto meat in some instances, and so it is entirely edible. Not that we recommend eating the shells of the
No,
eggs.
don't eat the shells. Oh, I suppose you could crush them up for calcium, but I don't know that
You
that's
could. And then I think then the next one was then from Cameron. So hi Cameron, how many hens did you have when you invested in an egg grading machine? Well, when we first started out, and we did the first 12 months of being in business, we had a candler which Amy built out of a few bits of pipe she bought in Bunnings and a bowl. And it meant tirelessly rolling eggs over individually and then handing them to her, and she would then put them on that set of scales we've got. We had some local friends who also ran an egg business, and unfortunately it became too much for them, and they decided to give up. And we then bought their egg grader off them, which was a fantastic piece of kit.
So we did a year without an egg grader. We had up to 1,200 chickens that year. So we started out with 450, but we very quickly doubled that number and then increased it again. So by the time we bought the egg grader, I think we were actually up to 1,500 chickens, because when we bought the egg grader, we also bought some chickens from Mike and Kaylee. And my mum, Tobias and I spent hours. So the egg grader means that we can do a day's worth of eggs in less than an hour. We used to spend 3 or 4 hours processing every day's eggs. It made for some very, very long nights. Horatio was a newborn, so he would be in the baby carrier and I would just be weighing eggs for hours, and Tobias would be candling eggs for hours. But we're so glad we invested in the egg grader.
But Amy was very up to date on Netflix shows back then. Watching TV while processing eggs.
Yeah, and audiobooks.
Next question is from Michelle Nixon. Hi, Michelle. Do they lay in the grass as well?
They like places where they can hide. So if they find a big clump of grass that they can make a bit of a nest in, they'll lay in the grass. Again, it's the ones that we missed when we were training them to the nesting boxes. So it might be a rogue chicken that decides a clump of grass near the water tank, for example, is her nest, but not typically. It's usually under trees, in dark corners, somewhere where they can feel protected.
What was the next question? How many trays did you drop when you started off and learnt 6 was the highest stack to go? Well, we didn't learn that 6 was the highest stack to go. That's kind of the standard, because egg boxes are designed to take 6. And also, if you look in, you can't really, because of the shelf above us in the just above we stack the eggs. If you put more than 6 trays on there, by the time you get the 7th tray, you can't put a top tray on to kind of get it out.
Yeah, when you lift up those 7 trays, you smash the 7th tray of eggs on the shelf above you. We also I learnt that you can't lift 12 trays of eggs at a time, especially when we still had pigs. One of the hand-raised pigs decided that she needed a pat while I was carrying a stack of 12 trays, and I dropped all of them.
But there was no cleaning up to do.
There was no cleaning up to do. Winnie the pig ate everything. We just had egg shortages that week. So, yeah.
Okay. I think the next one's from Claire, and it's like, what's your theory about refrigerating eggs? Yes, no, temperature. Well, the best way to store eggs is at a consistent temperature under 8 degrees. So fridges work because they're a consistent temperature. But as we always like to tell people, that actually the worst place to put eggs is a fridge door, because whenever you open up the fridge, it's going to get hot, cold, hot, cold. So we recommend keeping your eggs in the fridge, kind of, in the mid-level towards the back, unless you have one of those really dodgy fridges that, ice things on the back, in which case probably don't keep them there. But otherwise, yeah, keep them in the fridge.
Especially after you get them from us or from a supermarket or wherever, they will last longer if you refrigerate them. Every day that an egg spends refrigerated, you pretty much add, I think it's 5 to 6 days to the life of the egg. We don't refrigerate here on the farm unless it's the height of summer and we've got leftover eggs. We have the egg packing room is air conditioned. We keep it at 16 degrees, and we sell all the eggs within a week of them being laid. So we don't refrigerate them before we get them to you, so that they haven't had a fluctuation in temperature before we get them to you. So when you get them, if you want to, make them last the longest possible, then pop them in the fridge. If you're using them quickly and especially if you want baking with them or using them for hard-boiled eggs, you can leave them out. Just make sure that they're not fluctuating in temperature.
What's the next question from Hugh? And that is, how do the guard dogs look after the chickens? That's a really interesting question. So as we said before, we've got a breed of dog called Maremmas that have a bit like a household dog. They like to pack with you and bond with people. The way Maremmas work is a little bit different, where they'll basically pack or bond with a particular animal. And it started off bonding with sheep, but quickly Australian farmers figured out that they can also bond with chickens. And they will basically live with whatever they bonded with and guard them. So you actually find during the night, Maremmas can be quite lazy, like they'll just be lying around. And the reason why they're lying around having a nap is that they've been working all night. And we can hear them in the paddock at night. You'll hear bark, and then you'll hear footsteps and running, and then you'll hear barking further away in the distance or closer. And they'll move around the paddock to pursue foxes. And normally, if you've got more than one, they'll normally take it in turns to one will remain with the chickens, and the other one will go out and deal with whatever the noises they hear in the distance. So yeah, they're really effective. And I don't think we've lost any chickens since we've got.
No, we haven't lost since we got the Maremmas. We haven't lost any chickens to predator attacks, which is excellent. It's so nice to be able to go out to the paddock in the morning and not go, oh, did a fox get in last night? We used to use electric fencing to keep foxes out, but it wasn't always successful. If the fence shorted, especially during the prolonged drought, we couldn't get a really good ground on the fence, so it didn't give it much of a zap, and the foxes quickly realised that and used to make incursions into the fence.
And a hungry fox will try to get through a fence. And,
Yeah.
and the other thing about foxes though is that they will repeatedly go back and test your defenses. Like they'll come back every few nights, they'll get electrocuted, they'll try it again. And even with the dogs, they'll come up along the fence line and they'll constantly check there's a dog, but also foxes will go over and make noises in a certain spot to see if a dog comes to them, because they can figure out if you just left a dog up there chained up, and this is the reason you've got to have Maremmas, because they can move anywhere in the paddock and then they'll stay where they're needed. If you leave them chained up, the foxes will go around the chained up dog and figure out where the dog is, and then they'll then find a route to the chickens obeying the dog. So they're really cunning as a fox.
Mm-hmm, definitely.
Next one, another one from Jan. Is it a hecker trip every second weekend? Can you sustain this huge effort?
Well, we've been doing it for nearly 3 years now, and during that time, one of us has been working off farm as well the whole time. Tobias's job was actually in Sydney, so he was there anyway, and we just kind of kept it up. I think because our family is from Sydney and we are in Sydney, we're country, we made this country change from living in Sydney. It's natural for us to head back to Sydney. We love coming back and being able to share our great fresh produce with our customers in Sydney. It's just, I don't think we realised how much that was going to mean to us, but it's been really, really good. When we first started the business, we thought that restaurants and cafes were going to be our biggest customers. And in light of COVID, we're very glad that we definitely diversified away from cafes and restaurants. And until a couple of months ago, they made up 30% of our business space, but now they're none. And our customers in Sydney are still buying most of our eggs, which is just phenomenal. So no, I think we'll keep it up. We'll probably develop as we grow, we'll develop better systems, different systems. We've also obviously going forward, if we're bigger, we'll be able to freight the eggs up and have staff in Sydney to do the market stalls. But that is a long way away.
But you made a really interesting comment the other day, because we were talking about this ourselves, and Amy commented that even if we were just supplying locally, because of how far away most towns are, like we do a local delivery run, which in some days can be, from our place to Corowa, which is about 45 minutes, and then we could go out to Yakandanda, which is an hour for Corowa, and then you came back to Wodonga, which is another 45 minutes. And then on the longer days, you've then also gone all the way to Wagga. Yeah. So if you just do the local deliveries, that can sometimes take you as long as it would do to drive to Sydney.
Yes. Yeah.
But you don't think of it because it's all the time.
No. When I realised that I was spending just as long in the car every week doing local deliveries as Tobias was spending in the car driving to Sydney, we very quickly realised that the Sydney markets for us, we could afford to grow them because we were already spending that time in the car. So we now do 3 markets in a weekend, not just 1 or 2. So it makes it worth our while to make the trip to Sydney. And
we've also got 5 stockists there as well.
Yeah, and we've got 5 stockists in Sydney now too. So it's worth the drive every fortnight to do that. Yeah.
So the next question is from Sung. Hi there. Will you replay the farm tour video later as I have missed it? Thank you. Yes,
Yeah,
we will do.
we will.
We will be putting it on both Facebook and onto YouTube. But we felt rather than playing that live while this is going on, we felt those that had taken the effort to register and wanted to join us the Q&A should be the very first people to come experience it and ask the questions. But it will be available. Next question is from Julia. Hi, Julia. What do you do with broody chooks? We tend to try to get them off their eggs and hope they become unbroody. If we continuously find the same chicken in the same place, we just kind of put that in the pile of chickens that have to be sold off locally.
Yeah. So broody chickens here will. I've tried old wives' tales of dip them in a bucket of ice water. It hasn't worked. We definitely remove that. If they're found in a nest in the paddock, we'll remove the eggs. And try to destroy the nest area. So if it's a hidey hole that they've built themselves, we'll just pull it all apart and try to encourage them to go back to the flock. Look, most of them do. We probably only get maybe 5 broody chickens out of every 500. So it's not a huge issue. It's just frustrating because they're usually sitting on what becomes a very rotten pile of eggs because they're heating up eggs, but they're not fertilized. So it can be very frustrating.
It's kind of a bit sad sometimes.
It is, yeah.
Next question is from Travis. What sort of stocking rate do you have per hectare for your chickens to ensure that they're not overgrazing of the paddocks? Okay,
so our stocking density at the moment is about 50 hens per hectare. Our cartons say 110 because that's our maximum stocking density, but at the moment it's about 50 hens per hectare. We have had issues with overgrazing in summer because we try, especially when we had the electric fencing, because we kept the chickens near where there was shade. So even at that low stocking density, they overgrazed the areas where there was shade because they just did not want to be out in the sun. To try and avoid that with the no electric fencing, we move them more rapidly through the paddock. Most of the chickens stay within that 50-metre radius of each caravan. So as long as you're moving the caravan regularly, they're not overgrazing the paddock as a whole. But you can definitely see where they're concentrated in an area, either for too long because the caravan stayed in the same place for too long, or because in summer it was so hot that they just stayed under the trees, regardless of how far the trees were away from the caravans. That's an ongoing battle to figure out how we're going to fix that. Part of it is going to be introducing additional compost, so in the form of wood chip, straw, and adding it to those areas in summer so that instead of the chickens just reducing the ground cover, what they're actually doing is helping us turn that mulch, that straw and that wood chip into better soil so that when we take the chickens off there in winter, it regenerates really well. Yeah.
Yep.
Hope that helps answer that question.
Next question is, what is in the feed? So our feed is majority a rice-based feed from out in Leeton, but it does have other types of grain in it. Like everything inside of agriculture, a lot of things are tied towards cost. So the manufacturers that we buy it from do sometimes blend in other types of grain to try to get to a reasonable price feed. We still buy the absolute top end of feed because we want to make sure that our chickens have the best possible nutrition. It does cost effective.
There's a couple of things that it definitely doesn't have in it. It doesn't have canola, it doesn't have soy, and it doesn't have any genetically modified grains or ingredients. So it's 100% Australian and as locally sourced as possible, which is really important to us. Yeah.
Cool. Were there any other questions? Oh no, sorry, I've missed a few. David Johns, do you plan to offer real tours in the future? Yes. And you may miss my introductory remarks, but it was something that we had planned to do this year, to start trying to encourage, particularly around winter, because we find inside of summer when everything is brown or dead, it's kind of less picturesque.
But it's not an inspiring place in summer.
But particularly during
especially during a drought.
particularly during winter when it's beautiful, we were going to encourage people to come down and visit. And I think Amy, you'd even been in touch with some of the schools about.
I'd started to work. So as part of the Australian curriculum, primary school students now need to learn about where our food and fibre comes from. And I was going to work with local schools and homeschooling groups to offer curriculum compliant school tours. We had lots of material ready to go. Tobias encouraged me to hold off on announcing it. And sure enough, I think probably 3 weeks later, COVID had taken over, and it's definitely not an option at the moment. We'd even worked out how we were going to work through the biosecurity controls that we have in place on the farm to make sure that we were still complying with the biosecurity control orders that cover chicken farms and things like that. But those things are on hold, but we're definitely going to be doing those when we can.
Yep. Another question. How do you figure out which chickens aren't laying eggs? That is, we generally try to do it off the age. Now we're trying to change our production a little bit where we're trying to get an additional caravan and trying to get back to like a reset where we're going to try to not quite separate the flocks out, but make sure they're better tagged. We had a few groups which we didn't get around to tagging properly, and it has made it harder. So generally when we come to removing older chickens, we generally judge by the ones with the development of the size of their cone,
whether
their
or not
legs,
they're molting.
whether or not they're molting. You generally find older chickens are more likely to have pecked each other, and we generally find those are the ones that we've taken out to then sell off as retired former layers.
Yeah.
But ultimately though, it's very, very hard to know exactly which chickens are being there, and you've got a flock of, let's say you've got 50 chickens and you're only getting 40 eggs. Short of being out there and tracking every single chicken's movements, it's very hard to identify exactly which ones aren't going to lay.
Unfortunately, in this kind of production method, unlike a cage where you can have a monitoring of that no egg has come out of that cage today, we don't do that. We can't do that. We usually sell hens off as backyard hens after we've had them for 12 months. Sometimes we miss chickens, sometimes we don't tag as well as we should have, so that we can't identify. And then on that, we just go off appearance.
Yep. So another question, is that the last one?
No,
besides eggs, what are you now selling, like your fantastic mayonnaise?
Yes.
So the other thing we're doing at the moment is our different styles of mayonnaise, which I really hope to get back post-COVID to get doing tastings at markets, because I've always got some weird new ideas for flavours, and it's very hard to sell people on strange ideas they can't try before they buy. But at the moment in the kind of the mayonnaise space, we're doing our handcrafted traditional mayonnaise, smoked chipotle mayonnaise, and the fermented garlic, which for those of which you haven't tried that and have tried the roasted one, we actually think is a better final product. But it is a little bit harder to get because you've got to source really good quality organic garlic to make it work, so you can ferment it. But I think, and then the fermenting kind of takes a little bit of the harshness off the garlic, but you get a really wonderful garlicky flavour at the end. You like it, don't you?
Very good.
On anything, I catch Amy in the night, out eating mayonnaise with a spoon.
No, this is the fermented garlic aioli.
Just
fermented garlic aioli, eating it with fermented carrot sticks, because I'm a little bit into fermented foods.
Jan Jeffries, you said no canola or soy in the feed. Can you explain why? Thanks.
Yeah, so soy, most people are aware it can play around with hormones, and pretty much, I think it's, if a chicken eats 120 grams of feed a day, and it lays a 60-gram egg, or 70-gram egg at the moment, most of what they eat is put into that egg, and then we eat that. I think for the healthiest eggs possible, no soy is a good thing. Soy typically is genetically modified. Want to avoid that if we can. Canola, great for controlling the yolk color of eggs, but it actually affects the taste. Canola comes through in the flavour of the egg. It kind of leaves a little bit of a rancid flavour, apparently. So we requested no canola in our feed. It's actually grown here prolifically. Our neighbours all grow canola, but we would prefer it not to be fed to our chickens because it is also common to be a genetically modified.
But we do use it as the oil base for our mayonnaises. We do source an organic, non-GMO canola oil, which we use for the mayonnaise. And because it's the opposite of that, unlike in chickens where it comes through in the eggs, when you're coming to use it as an oil for food, it's actually the most neutral inside of flavor versus using an olive oil, which is very strong in flavor that comes through. So are there any other ones? No, I think that is all the questions. If anyone else has got a name, you could put it up there now. If not, we might conclude. You don't see any others, do you, Amy? No, I think that.
No, I think we've got everybody.
That is it. Thank you all for giving up your time to join us this afternoon on a Sunday. We really appreciate it, and we really appreciated your continued support and business in buying our eggs. We always like to get to know you at the markets, and we do like our little conversations that we have with you. And we really hope that when we get past COVID, we can have a chat with you again at the markets or talk. I'm a big talker. If you're ever bored and you want to have a phone call, my number's on the back of the card, and feel free to give me a call anytime. Amy, maybe not so much. So, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we've got one more question just came in.
Oh, many thanks.
Oh, no.
That's just people saying thank you.
Oh, there was one more. Any tips for someone wanting to start a pastured egg business? Cameron, how about you email us? We'll chat to you about that.
Yeah, no, you've certainly got to know what you're getting yourselves into. And I think when we entered it, we didn't quite know what we were doing. And we've learned a lot of lessons along the way. One of the key things that I think we've learned is, you've got to decide whether you want to compete on, quality or quantity.
Mm-hmm.
And we decided to pursue the quality, route, and being uncompromising and getting the best quality feed and ensuring the best way to keep our chickens. And it becomes very easy to be, drawn down the going, cheaper and underselling yourself and underselling your product. You got to make sure you've got the right piece of kit. Like we really do endorse the Chicken Caravan size, professionally built mobile chicken coops.
Yeah.
We have got some ones which we're trying to get rid of now, which were kind of slightly more dodgily makeshift made ones, which we bought what I thought was getting a bargain for, and they were like totally useless, and we got terrible quality eggs, and they were always filthy. So yeah, make sure even if you got to invest more, make sure you get the right piece of equipment to do it right.
Yeah, definitely. Good equipment. Maybe to go and do an internship on a farm that already does it and does it well. Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you so much for joining us. We do really appreciate it. And hopefully we'll see you soon.
Yep. And if there's any questions which you've had, which comes to you afterwards, feel free to ask us in person or to send us a message. So yes, thank you very much. Bye.